Okay, so for the ones online, can you hear us?
Yes.
I will not have.
Hi.
We were having some issues with the system, but now we connected over the phone, so hopefully it works.
Yeah, and you can hear me as well, yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Can you just test if they hear you?
Hello, hello. Ciao. Giancarlo here.
Ciao, Giancarlo.
Of course. Great. Thank you. Thanks much.
Yeah, we are all set up for starting. Right on the spot.
I don't know if we can increase the volume on their side, so maybe we hear them a bit more.
That's for the maximum. Okay, so can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I think we can get started. It's actually right on time. So thank you all for joining, and also for the ones that are physically present here, for joining this breakout session about the UMEI and its compatibility with the market platform, in which we will detail a bit more the concepts and also the entities that are participating on this mechanism to enable several mechanisms for flexibility. So regarding the agenda, we will start with an introductory part about the general UMEI concept, explaining what it is not, and how it will be used within the project, and namely the demonstrations of the project. Then we will go over to the market platforms that are participating in the project. So we have here Geza from Nodes and Giancarlo from End side, which will provide the perspective on the flexibility market operator side and what's the role of these platforms and the importance to enable these mechanisms. And then we will have the perspective from the other two actors within this flexibility ecosystem, which are the FSP, the flexibility service provider, which on behalf of EUniversal is a role taken by Centrica, and we have here with us Matab, or with us online, but she's still with us nevertheless. Matab from Centrica, and also I will provide a brief perspective regarding the DSO participation in such mechanism, which is taken by FH. Then we will have some Q&A at the end to hear your suggestions and also any questions that you might have from the presentation. I will start with a bit of interactive approach on this session, so I would like you to join or to scan this QR code in order to join to answer an introductory question, just for us to understand a bit of what's your knowledge about the UMEI and how it is perceived for the people that are participating in the project, and also outside, if this is the case, that we have people attending, which I believe is the case. So yeah, whenever you are ready, you can still scan the QR code. I would like to ask you this very simple question, but that will allow us to understand how the UMEI is perceived outside the team that is developing it. So is it an open source platform? Is it a set of API specification? Is it a data model to unlock flexibility, or a DSO system for flexibility management? Some of those can be more or less correct, some may not, but this will help us to clarify what it is and what it is not. So I will vote as well. I don't know the answer. Just to see if it is working. Okay, if you have any issues in trying to vote. or trying to access the link, please feel free to open up the mic. Let's just wait to reach the 10, maybe. Or probably we won't. Yeah, maybe we can go on with it. Okay, so we have 44% of the people that answered, actually nine answers. 44% believes it is a set of API specification, which is, by the way, the correct answer, as you can see in green. Others think that it is an open source platform, a data model to unlock flexibility, or a DSO system for flexibility management. This is also quite interesting because this way we can exactly explain it is in fact a set of API specifications that I will. It is the most correct answer. Of course, the API specification also encompasses a data model behind that API specification, but that's a consequence of developing the APIs and not the initial goal of the UMEI. Regarding the open source platform, I would like to highlight that the UMEI was built precisely for avoiding mediation platform. So if there's one thing that it is not, it is an open source platform. Even though it is open source, it is not a platform. That's what I would like to highlight. So then we can go to the initial explanation of the UMEI. The UMEI is built under task 2.4 from the work package 2. And this task was meant to develop this system, this decentralized or distributed system that would allow for the communication between the DSO, so to serve the DSO needs in terms of congestion management, voltage control, and also other services that are identified within the scope of the project, by developing these open API interfaces that would allow for the procurement and trading of those specific products. And of course that the procurement and the trading of these products involves and requires a connection to the market platforms, and within the EUniversal we have nodes as and side working as market platforms for facilitating this exchange of products and provisioning of services. But we also have a very important piece, which is Centrica, which acts as the bridge between the system and the consumers. By aggregating the resources from the consumer side, it is able to provide some products to the system overall, which are exchanged all via the UMEI until it reaches the DSO. So this is the general picture and where the UMEI is positioned. Even though we can pick it up as a platform, as the picture is drawn, it is not. It is just the messages themselves that travel between those entities. Speaking a little bit about the methodology for developing the UMEI, so it was an extensive work that we carried out by, first of all, analyzing the business use cases and system use cases which the demonstrations put forward, namely the demonstrations from EUniversal, so the Portuguese one, German and Polish, which test different kinds of services around flexibility with some slight variations between them. And we took those business use cases, system use cases, and also the existent market specifications from nodes and inside, and also the aggregator platforms from Centrica, and try to bring it all together in order to satisfy the needs of everybody, so for the use cases and also for the platforms, to try to build this thing which is compatible with everyone, so both with the market platforms, also with the demonstrations, and also with the needs of the DSO, of course, and being capable of accepting the offers from the FSP. Now, this resulted in the set of open API specification, which will be then implemented on the demonstrations, which will test these flexibility services for congestion management, dynamic line rating, voltage control, using this set of messages for enabling these services. So this is what I like to call the flexibility technical operation. So it is the technicalities that enable the flexibility to work. And this, of course, encompasses several steps of the project for managing flexibility, right from registration and pre-qualification, which is often the first step of any flexibility mechanism, up until the settlement, and going through the assessment of flexibility needs, the trading itself, the activation, and also the measurement. The UMEI, as it was developed, it covers the four middle steps that you are seeing in there, and this is due to several reasons. Because, first of all, the registration and pre-qualification and settlement were not a priority for the project. We also didn't have the assets to make this registration and pre-qualification, and it is often a bureaucratic process, which is also nowadays not in flexibility, but on typical energy side of things. It's a bureaucratic process, and it is very hard to automate the process as such. So we decided to put our effort on the things that are more important in our perspective to test within the demonstrations in order to leverage the work that is being done. Now, this slide is very important. It's basically, or probably the slide that will provide you the better overview about UMEI. So the UMEI, it can be divided into 6 process groups, as you can see, regarding baselines, orders, meter readings, market, portfolio, and trade. And these process groups have these CRUD operations, so create, read, update, and delete operations, that allow the entities to manage the data and to exchange the data. We can start by the baseline. So you can see in here, and also on the GitHub of UMEI, that there are several endpoints for the baseline, for submitting baselines, so regarding the resources that will be providing products within the flexibility schemes. You can perform several operations since creating the baselines, updating the baselines, deleting, or retrieving also the baselines for consultation for several entities. We can go there to the orders. This is one of the core groups of the flexibility. Without the orders, it is important to have flexibility. It is impossible to have flexibility because the orders allows for the DSO to submit their needs. It allows for the FSPs to submit their offers, so respectively buy orders and sell orders, and also perform the operations that are related to everything around these orders, so deleting, updating them, reading them, and so on. Then we have also the meter readings. So this is mainly to submit meter readings to the market, but not only. So we can also submit meter readings to the FSP. So the FSP can know which was the result of activating flexibility of one of those resources. And one thing that I would like to highlight also on this scheme entirely is that each and every one of these endpoints, it is like pick and implement. So you can pick 5 of those endpoints. If they satisfy your needs, you can implement just those 5. You don't have to implement all of them. And this is really important, and in my opinion, it's what makes UMEI so powerful as it is. Then we have also the market process group. This process group is very simple because it's often managed by the flexibility market operators. So they manage the markets and set up the market. We can retrieve which markets are available for us to exchange these services and these products in several mechanisms, of course. And just finishing, we have the portfolios, which is very important for the FSP, which allows for the FSP to aggregate several resources, create a portfolio, and specify the details of that portfolio so that it can be later mentioned and referred in an order to sell flexibility to the DSO. And lastly, but not the least, we have the trade, which the trade is basically the market result. So after the market gets cleared, the trades will search and the DSO and the FSP can know the results of those orders that were put in the market. We will explain the market a bit in more detail than with Inside and also Nodes. Just to finish on my side, we have already this draft of the UMEI available on GitHub. You can consult it. It consists on several pages, from the Swagger interface that details all of these APIs to a glossary that we also developed for the UMEI, which contains the terms and the descriptions that are used across this mechanism. And this is it from my side. I pass now on the floor to Nodes.
Yeah, I take over because the term market platform was mentioned several times, and also if we think about the actual use of this UMEI or functionality it's supposed to cover, the idea behind this universal market enabling interface is like, as this abbreviation actually says, that it should facilitate the access and the flexibility trading on various market platforms independent of their actual approach or technical realization, or also like their strengths and weaknesses. So we put together this agenda here because we thought there are a couple of things. If we just take the example Inside and Nodes, there are a couple of things that already in between these two platforms are quite different from each other. Why you would probably ask, so how is that even compatible, or does that work? So we point out some of these facts as the market design, which for instance, like I'm Nodes, and as such, we are implementing or applying an integrated market design, and as a product type, obviously in addition to all products are offered as short-term and long flex, so short-term flexibility or long-term flexibility products. Apart from that, we offer a couple of other products like active and reactive power, but also capacity and energy. As it's pointed out by Inside later on, for instance, and I talk here for you, that's all right. Inside has a different strength, like Inside has a clear skill and a lot of experience, like on the market clearing, and they put a lot of brain work, to call it like this, into how to optimize these algorithms and actually like to find the best clearing for the purpose of low voltage, medium voltage market clearing. Contrary to Nodes, we use the simplest approach possible at this point due to restrictions of the market, like liquidity and to which extent our markets implemented. So we use just pay as bid. So this is just to point out a little bit the agenda. So in the following, we touch upon all these points, including data requirements. And since I'm from Nodes, oh yes, sorry. So now this is actually what I was referring to with my speech. So sorry for that. I would say these are the points that we both wanted to work out. I don't know if do you want to add something in the name of Insights?
No, indeed, like I think Gita really highlighted it, that like the great part that we can see here in the project is how we have two different philosophies around the concept of market platforms. We have two different approaches which we're taking there. And in here, as you can see in this slide, these are a bit like the items which will be deep diving a bit more towards the rest of the presentation, where you can really highlight these different philosophies, these different approaches we have towards that. On our side, they're really going in depth into the understanding of the topology of the network. We're trying to get the most efficient clearing in terms of utilization of the assets. And on their side, it's like having a platform which is made for the purpose of these local markets, and it's born with that, and it also like really encompasses a wide variety of products. And with that, I pass the floor back to you.
So just to introduce a little bit to how Nodes understands its role and responsibilities as a flexibility market operator. If we just go directly to the next slide. We take rather a conservative approach, like how we understand the role of a flexibility market operator. So if you think of a market in the very traditional sense, it's actually a place where buyers and sellers meet, and prices are set actually by demand and supply. And this is where, and we stick to this approach, to this setup, and despite of obviously in this setup, buyers and sellers have a little bit more complex roles and also like complex responsibilities and tasks each on their side. So Nodes has created a flexibility market platform that allows for buyers and sellers to meet and to trade a product that is solely associated or like common in terms of location, price, and volume. That means we barely provide information about the DSO or the FSP. It's pretty much like this pure trading idea to ensure that it is an open, transparent, and independent market platform, that we maintain the anonymity, and that we are obviously providing the service that is related to a market, however, without interfering with the other stakeholders' responsibilities. Go to the next slide. So if we look at this, you see there in black, then you see the entire flexibility value chain, if you want to say it like this. If we start from the right side, you have the asset owner, like from the smallest unit possible, even like a battery or an electric vehicle. And then like we go to the control technology that will like then be translated to the aggregator or the flexibility service provider. And here we already start into the market idea, having the market platform, and then on the left side, the buyer side, let it be a DSO, a TSO, or a BRP. And when you look at these green boxes, you see that actually like the idea of these green boxes, the implementation of a flexibility market as it is today, would just translate into a digital flexibility value chain. So it's basically a digital marketplace in a very classical sense. And if you click the next, we thought we just put around a little bit the UMEI to make you understand where to place this UMEI and what sort of functions are actually enabled through this UMEI or facilitated. So as you can say, or as you can see here, the UMEI is accessible for the FSP and for the DSO, and the marketplaces are still a central part of this UMEI. However, the UMEI is only the mask they are accessing through. The actual idea of each, no, that was right, that was quite nice, thank you. The actual idea of each market platform, despite all differences in categorization, remains the same. So if you talk a little bit more specifically about Nodes market platform, Nodes has a bottom-up integrated market design. That means actually that we integrate all renewable energy sources that we summarize here as prosumers on the right, and they actually like provide their flexibility to the buyers, to the seller side, which can be, depending on the market setup, balance responsible parties, aggregators, or even like SSPs within a microgrid. And then we have on the left side the buyer side, which also, again, depending on the setup, can be a DSO, a TSO, or also a BRP. With this setup and having the market platform just placed just right there in the center, it enables the market platform to provide services to all kinds of markets and to apply it accordingly, independently of the actual setup of the pilots as they are made or set up today. As it was mentioned, however, for the UMEI, given the current state where it is, we focused only on the trading phase. So currently in the UMEI, you can only trade flexibility. Registration pre-qualification still remains on the side of the market platforms. This has advantages and disadvantages. One disadvantage maybe later can be served, that you would still need to connect to the market platform either via the API or via the graphical user interface. On the other hand, like this, at least in nodes, the registration pre-qualification is an interactive process. It means that the DSO can determine its grid zones with minimum data requirements. In nodes, since we do not use as sophisticated algorithm as Insight, for instance, we don't need too much data. It's basically the DSO who can choose the granularity of its grid, to which extent it wants to display it by the number of grid nodes, and one grid node is actually an order book. So on the other hand, like this, the DSO can decide if within this area he just places one giant grid node, or he can also even place strategically 20 and connect them in a hierarchy to each other. The FSP on the other side, and this is where the dynamic between DSO and FSP is actually maintaining, is FSPs just need to submit the geographical coordination, the type of asset, and the installed capacity. However, with a meter point that also needs to be submitted, it is still on the DSO to pre-qualify or to confirm this asset and to place it strategically to the grid node where, according to its grid, it has most effect. So it's an indirect consideration of the sensitivity of this asset without having provided this information to nodes. Here, just a short display, I just thought I put it. So this is basically the graphical user interface of nodes of the marketplace. That means this is how it is displayed. As you can see, it's kind of anonymous. You can choose the country where you trade the grid node. It's up regulation or down regulation. You can even filter the renewable energy type or the asset type you're precisely looking for, precisely to find the best solution for your specific problem. And as you can see on the right side, between one bit that you see, it is an aggregation. So if you click on it, you actually see the escalation of all bits behind there. All this maintains, so the logic of nodes here as the market platform maintains despite of using the UMEI. And we touched upon it, obviously. I don't know to which extent you're familiar with flexibility markets, but currently for flexibility markets, I would say the most interesting products are short-term flexibility and long-term flexibility products. It pretty much depends on the DSOs and their attitude. Many DSOs, because it's more related to the current activities, and it also does not require instant reaction. It's they prefer long flex. The reason why I show this slide is actually obviously as a market platform operator, and when we point out the differences to the different market platforms, we sort of focused a lot of the different products that we can provide within this market platform for the specific use. So we have the long flex products that are determined by a reservation price and an activation price. In the activation is in the short-term market, and we have a short flex product, short-term flexibility, where you actually just connect to the market, submit your bid, and if lucky, you match. And then actually you as an FSP, you have a delivery obligation, and as a DSO, you've actually entered into a legally binding agreement. Instant flex is not active so far. There's one thing I wanted to say, but I just missed out, so we'll just go to the next slide, because So what I wanted to say, yes, now I know it. So if no need to go back. So well, anyways, what you see here is these are sort of predetermined products within nodes. the categories or the precise setup of these products, like the long flex market duration, the short flex market duration, gate closure and all that stuff, this is included in the market rules and the specific market configuration, which is pre-done. So it's not done via the UMEI, but it is actually displayed in the market rules and the associated market design. Thank you. So to summarize that scope and features of nodes versus the UMEI, it's actually like the UMEI currently covers the following functionalities of nodes, which is actually like the short-term trade, which is basically the usage of the price only, location, quantity, and price. As I said, like you can use the pre-configured markets, and you can determine the product duration, the ISP duration, the gate closure in order to align it with existing markets or the precise product you need. We have, or we apply at the moment, a continuous market using pay as bid. And when you use long term, that is also possible through the UMEI, but only in that sense that you purchase long flex via the nodes market platform. The activation, however, takes place in the short-term market, which means you can activate via the UMEI. However, it has to be pre-purchased through nodes at this moment. Obviously, in EUniversal so far, we do not test validation and settlement, basically because it was quite a challenge to set that up, as easy as it sounds at the moment. Thank you. And just a short summary of what I thought. So if we talk about nodes in EUniversal, we can say like within the 3 demos, we test the very basic, the simplest setup, that we have a DSO and an aggregator who represents like the different renewable energy sources. But this setup is tested in all 3 demos in a different way, and this is actually quite interesting because both on nodes, but also via the UMEI. For instance, in the EUniversal project, in the German demo, we test the local flexibility market that takes into account the cost-regulated redispatch, as it is in Germany, in combination with a flexibility market. In Poland, there is a huge focus on the different products, for instance, that we have active and reactive power. But the interesting part of this is also that they trade dynamic line capacity. So FSP and DSO swap roles, and the DSO actually like sells spare capacity of its grid, of its line to the FSP. And in the Portuguese demo, it will be an evaluation or a test case for the different long flex and short flex products in the different locations in Portugal. And this is a little bit publicity, so frankly, because obviously this was all about the nodes in EUniversal, but as I said, like this is an integrated market design that is tested widely across Europe and by now even in Canada, where we have like test sites that include DSO, TSO coordination, that we have in the UK, the instant flex and the precise integration of electric vehicles. So this is just to show that the design is applicable. The idea of nodes was to create an agile and versatile marketplace, and I think so far, even though we're still in the pilot phase, it's at least proven that it's easily applicable.
Thanks a lot. Then for inside, we're going to do it a bit of the reverse order. So I'm actually going to start where Lisa completed the presentation and show you how inside, for now, a bit more than 10 years, has been active in the environmental flexibility. Our core expertise, actually, inside, as Lisa was mentioning, is on the algorithmics. We have been working with the developers of the single day-ahead coupling algorithm of EMEA, which is taking care for now a bit more than 10 years of the coupling of the European day-ahead market. And Shortly after that, we decided to also enter in the world of flexibility. We started with some DSOs, such as ODES in there. Then we moved a bit to several European projects. EUniversal here with the UMEI is one of them, but we also participate in SmartNet and Coordinate. And what I want to highlight here is our approach towards local markets. We consider a customized and tailored local market, which means that we actually try to cover for each of these solutions using our different algorithms, the different use cases that our customer wants. So reducing and using a subset of the different functionalities that we have, we try to serve the customer needs. A clear example was in a project with Centrica, which we have mapped today representing the company. The local energy market, where we support indeed a simple local energy market in the DSO side, compared to, for example, Statnet, where we are working still currently in supporting DSO-TSO coordination for several local energy markets. As I said, it's quite controversial to see how an algorithmic company is now entering in a market platform environment where, indeed, let's say the user interface and everything which goes towards the acceptance of orders, and this is not our core expertise. And that's where we have Local Flex, which is our solution, which we partner with Epexpo, and we're going to go there here. So actually what we're doing here in Universal is a bit of an abstraction of what we do in this Local Flex solution. We take the own proprietary algorithm of inside and we try to apply to the project. I will get back again to what is the full end-to-end process of the flexibility value chain, as it was highlighted before. Because we have this strong utilization of algorithmics, we necessarily need information on the grid topology, asset types, let's say, and the different categories of network information that we are at stake. And the reason for that is that it gives us visibility over what are the problems in terms of the local distribution of flows, and then allows us to use that to perform our network-aware market clearing. So if I go from left to right, the first steps encompass import of the grid model and topology and a site registration. As we were saying, these are not encompassed now in the Universal European project. Nonetheless, these steps are necessary in order to then go towards the real flexibility value chain, starting with bids and offers, where the different participants will submit their flexibility request and need or the flexibility offers. We then go towards the auction mechanism. So we have a closed gate auction process, which can work for both long and short-term products. Our actions, indeed customized based on the needs, can go from pay as clear to pay as bid, basically considering either the clearing marginal price or the bid offer availability. And once these deals are traded, we go towards the contract and delivery phase. We also consider then finally baselining and settlement. Which in our process we consider in the future and currently can be encompassed in the UMEI. So we can see the settlement phase, as before it was already highlighted by Carlos, is still not considered there. Nonetheless, we believe that in the future we could also adapt that to the UMEI. And already currently, again, we are already considering the bids and offers, taking into account the values of the UMEI as we have today. I will not deep dive in the user-friendly interface, as indeed is not the main topic and main expertise of inside. But what I want to still highlight in this slide is how we take on one side the buyers and one side the sellers. We combine those information with the grid topology, and we then cover the same way that we have been covering wholesale markets, the expansion to local energy markets and flexibility markets. What are the key functionalities of the local energy markets provided by NSIS? We utilize several market rules to then consider several products. And the final added value from the network-aware considerations I was making before goes into the coordination between the different agents. So starting with the market rules, we have an impartial market. This is a neutral market where several companies and flexibility sellers can agree with each other, and it's not really just given, and I was mentioning before, on their availability. It really goes towards what we consider the best for the network itself. We cover both long-term and short-term products, which basically means we go from long-term auctions, considering the reserve for electricity, and and then reducing, obviously, in terms of uncertainty and also advancing in terms of timeline towards day ahead and intraday options. Finally, what we allow as well is also the sending of price signals. What does it mean? Basically, by providing the marginal cost of the different users, we can utilize this information in order to understand these price signals and really see whether the clearing has to go towards a higher or lower price. I will then move to the product section, where we allow price-sensitive orders. Here, both sellers and buyers can submit the price-sensitive orders, and we ensure on our side the compatibility on the platform with other procurement sources. It's important to mention that we've been working now with the EUniversal project, also making sure that all of this information is in the API standard of the UMEI. This information, because we have this network awareness as well, allows us to forecast congestion and also serve the DSO in order to mitigate these occurrences. The second product information goes to the product parameters. Let's go ahead, where we allow all sort of, I would call them exotic orders. So it's not really strict to the conventional block bid or the conventional traditional type of bid. We also allow this with minimum acceptance ratios or minimum activation times, as well as the most thermal-related power plants which have some sort of ramping constraints. So that's everything that we take into account with leveraging the expertise of the previous project. The last item that I want to touch upon is the coordination, where we ensure a grid-secure network clearing, as well as a transmission and distribution system operation coordination. So for the grid-secure aspect, we take into consideration headrooms, not specifically in the Portuguese demo, but we have been active as well in the German demo with respect to the DSO tool. So what we offer to the for the German demo is not really a clearing mechanism, it's more of a tool which runs on DSO premises, and to know more actually with the other breakout room in there. Where basically what we do is we support them in order to have a kind of pre-filtering of the bids by getting them information about the technology and really understanding in which direction they're going. In terms of grid security, what do we use these headrooms for? Basically, we procure flexibility at distribution level, so we ensure an optimal clearing at this level, and then we pass on the flexibility at the TSO. So basically, the TSO will buy flexibility at the roof of the distribution network, where the DSO, acting first, will buy flexibility at any location distributed. The remaining flexibility passed on to the TSO. The second item goes towards the transmission and distribution coordination. Our platform coordinates transmission distribution procurement in order to ensure these energy system operation contracts and that these different interests are not jeopardizing each other. Why is this necessary? Because obviously flexibility will be needed at both distribution and transmission levels, and we have to ensure that the network allows for an optimal flow without necessarily having to share all the information with the transmission and distribution system operators. Hence, we act here as a connection point in order to ensure the different needs to be met, and at the same time reduce the information which are being shared with each other. We can go into that any question later on to highlight a bit more different aspects. Thanks a lot for that. And then what we would like to do here is also get a bit of a feeling on your side after you heard like, the two realities of the two different market platforms. What do you feel after this speech are the main challenges for the UMEI in order to become a European standard? So here you could highlight the fact that the product range covering could be an obstacle. Basically, we have seen there are several types of products. The system compatibility, different type of systems that need to work together. It could be the communication structure integration. There are a lot of different standards, XML, JSON, and such. How do we ensure the compatibility between them? Market double booking. What does it mean? We have several platforms. FSPs can participate in several platforms. How do we make sure that the same asset is not built on several market platforms and at the same time it's validated on more of them, so it's not able to procure on both? Finally, if you don't agree with these four and you have other ideas, we're really interested in hearing more about that. So feel free to give us your opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Giancarlo. Just remember that you can select multiple options depending on the things you believe are more challenging for the UMEI to become such a standard.
great to see the first answers coming in,
Yeah,
where there's a
real time.
clear concern in terms of communication structure, I feel.
So we have more or less 20 people in the room, so I'm expecting more than 15 answers. So if anyone, especially those who selected other, would like to comment on this, feel free to speak or to open up your mic for the ones remotely, and please specify and take into account that this feedback is very important for us in order to decide also on the potential developments to the UMEI or some kind of implementation to this. So any comment, especially from those selected others?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can.
You can hear me?
Yes, it's connected.
Okay. I was one of the guys selecting also the other option. My point is, whether do you think that the standard approach to standards would really have an impact on the UMEI development? Should we wait for these old standards to evolve towards the future, or can we go one step further without waiting for them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think my comment in that is that we are trying to make this work in a simple way. If we are able to establish the needs of everyone, communicate with very simple and existing technology, and connect those systems, I think that should be the way further. Of course, there are many works developing those existing standards, and maybe there are some synergies in there, but I think the focus, and anyone can comment on this, I think the focus is to develop a system or a mechanism that is easy for everyone to adopt without being a specialist on a specific standard, and that can simply consult a web page stating what you can do with these pieces and with these components, and picking them and implement it on their platform in an easy way, as the big corporations and also tech companies do nowadays. We can transpose that into the energy sector as well.
Yeah, I think, well, today morning we had the demos board, and the decision, let's say, that we took on regarding the standardization and how to present also as because my goal EDSO is to make harmonization between the demos, so can present harmonization between three demos that some of them are similar things, others not so much, and we also know that from BS2 to BS2 it changed the way they work and operate. So it goes a bit on this line that we don't only focus on the final answer of standardization, but the process also achieve things. Can we find a way that's standardized for everyone? So the way that you connect. Also, this is why I want for system compatibility. Can we make this UMEI more readable to any kind of so that in their way they can connect easily and not make just one way of connection. So also the perspective that the demo guys say is that we focus on the process of the an harmonized process and the standard process that is open to every year to be able to follow these solutions and not to present one communication, one native model way to proceed, and this way like the others cannot connect to the items, let's say. So today basically is very in line with what we are talking with here is what we want in the end to achieve that on the demo side.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Okay, I agree.
If I may add to that, because I think it's a question, it's a very interesting question. It does not have a definite answer, because I think it really depends on the timing and at which time you want to address which target group. If we talk about flexibility in the classical sense, and then we're talking about like providing access to flexibility in the low voltage to medium voltage grid, we should consider that they will probably like face smaller companies who would rather use simpler communication structures or languages than big companies also that will also merge into the medium voltage grid, also like with the flexibility implementation, like may come across low voltage flexibility, but basically interact in the high voltage grid. And I think this is the general question, because from an economic perspective, you would probably say, why shouldn't we use the common language model that has been implemented and standardized so far, and simply use that as a standard? And I think there we touch upon the factor of time, because then we run the risk that we lose all those small flexibility providers and DSOs who are not there yet from a technological perspective. So
I think it's very interesting. I myself, I personally think a lot about that and never reach a conclusion on this duality between harmonization and standardization. On my personal view, I would rather go to harmonization than to standardization, because I think standards are important, but mostly, in my opinion, it's only in my opinion, sorry for that, mostly on real assets. I mean, if you are designing a table, it's important that you have very clear rules. But if you are designing IT systems, I think it's important to be flexible enough to allow for faster adaptation to the changes in society. And what we see right now is that the sim development takes 20 years for the first step, another 10 years for the second step, and who knows the time that will take. I was saying this morning that if you want to have a job for a lifetime, you should choose standard. That is the best option, because it never ends. And we understand why, because it's so difficult to align so many people around the same subject and around the same rules that we will never get it totally. On the opposite side, we have the examples of Airbnbs, Googles, and who knows, and even the Ubers of this time, that they are not waiting for a standard. They design simple rules that the others can easily adopt and evolve their products. Of course, we should, in my opinion, we should not lock in the solution. There is also the risk when we do not standardize things, is that someone has a specific standard and locks in the solution. That is not a good way to go forward. But I think the market will solve that problem. I hope at least that the market will solve, as long as we keep on the register that everything that we do is open to society. And one of the good things of this project is exactly that from the very beginning we decided to make it open. So good or bad is open. Just change. I think it's a good option.
I think maybe to complement Brian on that concept of the timeline, indeed, like the idea of getting something started, it will not get perfect at the beginning, but getting it started and getting
keep evolving,
the dynamics behind that, indeed. But pass the word to finalize to Carlos on
just to recap on this part, I think this slide summarizes it very well. We already saw it in the introductory session. And it shows basically the compatibility of UMEI with the market platforms and with the use cases that are being tested on the Universal. I won't take much long, so I will pass the word to Mata just to present the vision of the FSP and the perspective in this whole ecosystem, as we understand that it plays a crucial role.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Carlos. Can you hear me clear?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. Here I will just give an introduction about the role of aggregator in the Universal project. So Centrical Business Solutions, we are mainly involved in Universal project as an independent aggregator to provide flexibility for DSO. However, in the general context, we have Centrical is created to develop new thinking, new technologies, and new ways of working to help our customers to participate into the market. So to this end, we offer different products that you can see on the bottom of this slide. So our products cover a different electricity market, from long-term to real-time market electricity market. And you can see we help different system operate. We provide a flexibility to different system operators. And then our customers differ from utility level to residential. So if you move on to the next slide. Thanks. So in the context of Universal, you can see that DSO and FSP, we are located in two different sites. So the main goal is to provide flexibility for the DSO, which means that we need to submit our bids. We need to trade the flexibility through the market operator to provide this flexibility for DSO and solve the congestion in the network, and also voltage control. So you can see for all this communication, we will use UMEI. So all the communication phase will be done through UMEI. So in general, as the first question was asked, the UMEI is a set of APIs. So so far for Universal, two APIs are defined. The first one is the FMO server, which is mainly responsible for trading the bids, baselines, and also send out the market clearing result to FSP. So this FMO is hosted by two market operators in this project. And then another API is defined for the purpose of sending out the meter reading from smart meters located for the low voltage customer to FSP. This API is hosted by FSP, by us. And then for the FMO server, both FSP and DSO, we are the client of this API, and is hosted by two market operators. So that one is for the purpose of the demos. However, in the bigger context, the UMEI can include different other APIs depending on the services, the production specification, and also depending on the regulation on each country. Another API or APIs can be added to the UMEI. But the most important thing is the harmonization. So as a FSP, we are the client of the FMO server. And as you see through the presentation by Nodes and Insight, they have different specification, which means that as FSP, if we want to trade within these market operators, we need to have like a tailor-made communication channel. However, with using UMEI, we just build this one communication channel, and then we have access to market operators. So if I want to go into the details about the steps that we take into account as a FSP, if you go to the next slide, please. So here, as a FSP, we have the connection through the flexible assets. We have access to the sub-meter data, and also we are able to control the flexible assets for the low voltage customer with through the home energy management system. And then we have the manual activation for the medium voltage customers. And then all the communication regarding the market will most of the communication through the UMEI. And then we have connection, a direct connection in the Portuguese demo with a DSO regarding the receiving meter reading data. So the first step is that we calculate the flexibility from flexible assets. We aggregate them in the sort of portfolio. This portfolio can be included only one flexible assets or multiple flexible assets, and then we submit this portfolio through via UMEI to the market platform. And then after the market clearing, we will receive the activated result, and then we need to disaggregate the result and send the activation signal to the flexible assets, and then afterwards we will receive the meter reading data from the DSO. So that's the whole steps that we need to take into account to provide the flexibility. And as I mentioned before, in order to communicate with a market operator, if the UMEI doesn't exist, we need to have a tailor-made communication channel for each market operators, while with UMEI we don't need to take into account this specific this tailor-made communication as a FSP. So now I will give the floor to Carlos to explain the perspective of the DSO.
Okay, thank you, Natal. Yeah, I will. I have just here a slide which briefly explains what is happening on the DSO side, namely on the Portuguese demo. And in here we can see that we have some tools which mainly calculate the network status and make some calculations for the flexibility needs regarding the identified constraints in terms of power flow or voltage control. And the way these tools interact with the UMEI is basically, as I've explained before, using the orders API or the orders group from the UMEI, we are able to send the flexibility request to the market operators, so to the two market operators within Universal, receive the market results and make validations on whether that solves our problem, and then we can also share this metering data with the FSP to calculate the amount of flexibility that was in fact delivered from the resources that were connected. We are more or less on our time. I would just like to ask you an additional question, and this is the final one, which is very important for us, which are the priorities, development opportunities for the UMEI. So if UMEI is extended further and developed further, what should be our focus in terms of development? Would it be the compatibility with the TSO that was referred also here, the flexibility registers synchronization, which can be linked a lot with the double booking that Giancarlo spoke about before, alignment with standards. This was also an interesting discussion that we had a few minutes ago, or also the inclusion of other steps of the process, such as the settlement or the pre-qualification, which are not covered right now through the UMEI, or also others, of course. I will pass the slide to the questions. There's no correct answer, so this is just for asking your feedback and trying to understand what will be our focus from now on. Interesting to see this result. So I will expect 15 answers. And yeah, I take this time, so this is actually my last slide. I would like also to ask you for any questions or suggestions forward, if you have any, either physically or remotely, please provide your opinion on what should be a suggestion for the UMEI, or if you have any concrete question about the platforms or the aggregation of resources, or even the needs from the DSO, please feel free to ask them.
If I may comment something?
Yeah,
actually interesting to see the results, because apparently there's a majority on compatibility with the TSO. However, alignment with standards is only at 10%.
Yes.
Which is an interesting tiny contradiction. But I think it's pretty much like from the user perspective. So it would be good to have the TSO on board without consideration of the standardization necessity behind that.
this
Also,
is
this is an organization.
okay.
I see there are no others this time.
Yeah, then there are no others. Probably people are afraid to talk to
That's
such a
that's-
big quorum.
This time you have one.
Okay, so I think we can finish here if there are no additional questions. And thank you very much for your attendance and also for providing these insightful answers to our questions, which certainly will help us in defining some of the next steps further to the project and also within the project, of course. So, yeah, I think this is it. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone remotely, wherever you are. And see you in 10 minutes, I think, on the general session.
Thanks.
Okay, we had a little quiet.
What was the reaction? The beauty of technology.
Okay.
I don't know if people are repeating or just next time I will connect online and also.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.